Algebra Unit 3, Lesson 3, Notes 3, Graphing Equations in Slope-Intercept Form. An equation in the form of y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept, is in slope-intercept form. The variables m and b are called parameters of the equation. Changing either value changes the equation's graph. Rewrite each equation in slope-intercept form if necessary, then identify the slope and y-intercept of each equation. Letter A. So remember, we're using slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Our y is in the right place, we've got our x term in the right place, and our constant in the right place. So this is already in that form, so all we're doing is naming our slope and y-intercept. Our slope, which is represented by m, is 3, and our y-intercept, represented by b, is 7. Let's jump to letter C. So now we have function notation, which is fine. Our form, our slope-intercept form, is y equals mx plus b. And this is in that form. It's okay that we have f of x. F of x, remember, is the same as y. It's just function notation. Our slope is 3/4. And our y-intercept, because of that minus sign, our y-intercept is -5. Let's take a look at D. G of x equals -x. So y equals mx plus b. So we do have our function notation again. G of x represents the y. And m, this time we have a couple things happening. Our slope has a -1 in front of it, so -1x. And if you look, there's no constant. So really we could say this is plus 0 because there's nothing there. Our slope is -1. Our y-intercept is 0. Letter E, h of x equals -1/3. Y equals mx plus b. Well, we do have -1/3 here, but there's no variable attached. So actually, this represents our constant. So if I were to rewrite this to be able to identify our slope and y-intercept, we don't have an x term. So we can say that it's 0 x's minus 1/3. So our slope in this case is actually 0. Our y-intercept is -1/3. So if there's no x term, our slope is 0. If there's no constant, as in the previous example, our y-intercept is 0. Letter H, y minus 3 equals 1/5 x. This right away I can tell is not in slope-intercept form. We don't have y by itself, and in order to be in slope-intercept form, y must be alone. So let's go ahead and draw our line through our equal sign. Let's add 3 to both sides. So we have y equals 1/5 x plus 3. I can't add them because they aren't like terms. It's also good practice to throw your x term first in your equation so that it's in slope-intercept form, in which I do have right now. Y equals mx plus b. Our slope is 1/5, and our y-intercept is +3. Letter J. We have a lot of stuff going on. My y is on the right-hand side of this equation, so I'm going to try and remove everything else from the y. I need to take care of this -2x, and I'm going to do that by adding 2x to both sides. So those cancel, and I'm left with y alone on the right. And then I have -9, and then -5x plus 2x is -3x. I'm going to flip this around so the y is first. y equals, and I'm going to write my x term first. That sign in front of it tags along. So negative 3x minus 9. So I did a couple things. Again, I reversed it so the y was on the left instead of the right. And I then also switched around my terms, negative 3x and negative 9. So now I can easily identify the slope is negative 3 and the y-intercept is negative 9. Letter K. 2y plus 12 equals 8x. So we have a couple things. We've got 2 being multiplied by y and an addition of 12. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract that 12. 2y equals, put your x term first, 8x minus 12. I have 2 times y. To get rid of that, I need to divide by 2, which means I need to divide every term by 2. So I have y equals 8x divided by 2 is 4x minus 12 divided by 2 is 6. Our slope is 4. The y-intercept is negative 6. Next, we have negative 15 equals negative 3y minus x. The y is on the right-hand side, so the first thing I need to do is get rid of this minus x by adding it. And again, I'm going to write the x term first. It's positive, or it's plus x, so it's really positive 1x minus 15 equals, bring down the negative 3y. Those cancel. I need to divide by negative 3, and again, divide each term by negative 3. I get 1 divided by negative 3 is the same as negative 1/3. So negative 1/3 x. Negative 15 divided by negative 3 is positive 5 equals y. I'm going to rearrange it so the y is on the left. You don't need to. It just is easier for me to recognize the slope and y-intercept. So y equals, put your x term first, negative 1/3 x plus 5. Our slope is then negative 1/3, and our y-intercept is 5. Write the equation of a line with the following slopes and y-intercepts. Now we're going to go backwards. We're given a slope and y-intercept, and we need to write an equation. Remember, our equations in slope-intercept form are y equals mx plus b. All we're doing here is replacing our m and b values. So y equals, m is 2, so 2x. B is negative 4, so minus 4. It's as simple as that. Let's jump to C. Again, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Our slope is negative 5/3, so negative 5/3 goes before the x in place of m, plus, and our y-intercept is 0. Now we normally don't write plus 0, so we can rewrite this as y equals negative 5/3 x. Graphing in slope-intercept form. When an equation is not written in slope-intercept form, it may be easier to rewrite it before graphing. Lines can have the equation y equals b, where b is any number. These are horizontal lines with a slope of 0. Vertical lines do not have a y-intercept, and their slopes are undefined. Therefore, cannot be written in slope-intercept form. They are written in the form of x equals c, where c is a constant. Graph the following linear functions. The first thing we need to do is put this in slope-intercept form, or in other words, y equals mx plus b. So we need to get y by itself. To do that, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. I have y equals, put your x term first, 3x, and bring down the minus 2. So this tells me that the slope is 3 and the y-intercept is -2. So our slope tells us which directions to go, and our y-intercept tells us where to begin. So I always like to think of B for begin. We begin at -2. It is a y-intercept, which means we begin on the y-axis at -2. So the first thing we're going to do is plot a point on our graph on the y-intercept at -2. Let's move this ruler out of the way. So y-intercept is -2. So go ahead and put a point. Now we have our directions, which is our slope. You always want your slope in fraction form. So let's put 3/1. Whole numbers are always over 1 for fractions. If the top number tells you up or down, and the bottom number, denominator, tells you left or right. So if your numerator is positive, you go up. If it were negative, you'd go down. Our denominator is positive, which means we go right. If it were negative, we would go left. And an easy way to remember that is you have to go towards those numbers. So for example, 3 is positive. When you start down here at your begin point, your -2, and you want to go towards the positive numbers, you need to go up. Similarly, with our denominator being 1, we want to go towards the positive numbers, which are to the right. So here's what we need to do. We're going to start at our point of -2. We are going to count up 3 and then write 1. So start here, 1, 2, 3, and then write 1. So put a point at the coordinates 1, 1. And bear with me as my calibration is a little off on the iPad. Okay, and keep going. Up 3, write 1. Up 3, write 1. Up 3, write 1. If you want more points, you can go back to your beginning point and move backwards. Instead of up and right, we would go down and left. So down 3, left 1, down 3, left 1, and so on. Let's erase that one there. There we go. Then what you're going to do is take a ruler, line it up with your points as best as you can, and then draw a straight line through the points. Mine was a little off. Let's try that again. Again, bear with me, using new tools on here. Let's try that again. Okay. Make it a little thicker too. There we go. It's always a good idea to label your lines. You can label it with your slope-intercept form, or you can label it with the original. I tend to label with the original. And that's how you graph. Let's try another one. Let's look at letter B. F of x equals -1/4 x plus 5. This is already in slope-intercept form. So our slope is -1/4. That negative, I always like to put with my numerator, but it doesn't matter. And the y-intercept is 5. So we're going to begin at 5 on the y-axis. So put a point at 5. Our slope tells us the direction. In this case, our numerator is negative, which tells me I'm going down. And our denominator is positive, so I'm going right. Think of these as your directions. So I'm going to begin at my point, which is at 5 on the y-axis. I'm going to go down 1, right 4, and then plot a point. and continue to do that. Okay. So down 1, right 4, down 1, right 4. I'm going to go in the opposite direction. Up 1, left 4, up 1, left 4. And you're going to use your ruler and draw a line. Label it. F of x equals negative 1/4 x plus 5. Make sure you put the arrows on either end of your line because they are lines and they go forever in both directions. Letter E, y equals 2. If you remember, there was a notation up in our description that said that lines can have the equation y equals a number. These are horizontal lines that have a slope of 0. This doesn't have an x term. So y equals mx plus b. It doesn't have an x term, and if you remember, there'd be 0 x's plus our 2. So our slope is really 0. Because of that, what happens is it creates a horizontal line at the value y equals 2. So you can actually go right up to y equals 2, which is here, and draw a horizontal line. And label it. There are times when you will need to write an equation when given a graph. To do this, first locate the y-intercept, then use the rise and run to find another point on the graph. Lastly, write the equation. So letter G, find the equation of the graph. It crosses our y-axis right here, and that is at the point 0, 1. So our y-intercept, or b, is 1. To then find the slope, we need to determine a rise and a run. So pick any 2 points on the graph. I would pick the point, let's erase this. I would pick this point, and let's also pick this point. Give it directions. So it's rise over run. Remember, if you go down or left, it's negative. If you go up or right, it's positive. So I like to go from left to right, personally. So I'm going down 1 unit, so our rise is negative 1. And our run, I'm going right 3 units, so our run is 3. So our slope is negative 1/3. Writing the equation in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Our slope is negative 1/3, and our y-intercept is 1, making our equation y equals negative 1/3 x plus 1. Letter I, find the equation of the graph below. Now we're only given the first quadrant here, but I still have my y-intercept, which is right here at 15. So b equals 15. Find another point of intersection where it intersects the grid lines, right there. Be careful. You're counting on your y-axis by 3s, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and so on. So each block you go up is 3 units. Okay, your x-axis is counting by 1s, so each block represents 1 unit. Here, we're going up one block, but remember, up and down, I'm going from 15 to 18. So I'm going up 3, because I'm going up, it's positive. And I'm going right 3 units. 1, 2, 3. So our slope is 3 over 3, which equals 1. Which means our equation is y equals, our m is 1, so 1x plus b is 15. It is not necessary to write a 1. We can treat it invisible. Okay, so y equals x plus 15 is sufficient. If you left the 1 in there, no big deal. It is still 100% correct. I just want to make a note for K and L. We have a horizontal line, which we dealt with in the previous page, and we have a vertical line. Horizontal lines are in the form y equals a number, and vertical lines, like in L, are x equals a number, and that number is where it intercepts the axes. Try the rest of these on your own.